YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back with another episode of Overreaction Monday. Here we are after Week 7 Sunday action of football, which was pretty entertaining to say the least. We had a recap on that. We have a bunch of trade deadline videos already up, what to expect. We'll grade the trades, the big trades that go down. We got you covered. Check out that Twitter. Even more coverage on there. Live tweeting during games. Link in the description in the comments. Instagram, podcast, Patreon. A lot of extra content there. You'll find links for those down below. Trying to reach the 60K subscriber goal. Getting close. Appreciate the support. Would appreciate if you could subscribe. Again, full coverage. We got you here. Picks, predictions, power rankings. Almost every day. We got you. That Patreon. Extra content. Junior, who's in first place in picks, has his score predictions on the Patreon. I have my bets of the week for the NFL and college score predictions for college on there as well. Updated playoff predictions, so I predict the seedings and then the winners of each round of the playoffs and then the Super Bowl, of course. So that'll be pretty fun week by week. Bonus content, Discord access, always adding more. Links down below. As always, appreciate the support from anyone who signed up. But to the first one of the overreactions based on Week 7. You send these in through the Twitter. Twitter's on the screen. You also can find the link down below. Appreciate everyone who played along. First one, Samson 5. Mike McCarthy should be fired right now. That performance was unacceptable against a team without a name. Mike McCarthy has been a little disappointing. Same with Kellen Moore. Same with the defense coaching staff, Mike Nolan and in company. But I'm still gonna say it's an overreaction. He definitely deserves time, even though it's been very disappointing. There's just been too many injuries. The Cowboys went from one of the very best offensive lines in football to one of the maybe the worst, which is pretty crazy because there's some bad ones out there. It's because of injuries. So, and you pretty much your playbook changes, your play calls change because of that. So, if this was Nolan needs to get fired, their defense coordinator, I'd be on board with that for sure. Don't think that's much of an overreaction. I still think Mike McCarthy needs time, more of a fair shot. But again, he has been disappointing at the same time. But I do think it's an overreaction. Next, from Los's Detective, the Packers' loss was a fluke. Their loss in Week 6 to the Buccaneers, and then they had a big win against the Texans there. So they went from a loss to the Bucs to a win against the Texans. And so was that loss a fluke? Did they prove that this week by beating the Texans? I'm going to say it's an overreaction. You can look at this multiple ways, but I think their loss, I don't think their loss was a fluke, plain and simple, against the Buccaneers. I think the Buccaneers are a very good team. I think they also match up very well against the Packers. If you would say the Packers, because of the Packers' loss to the Bucs, does that make them less of a contender than we thought? I would also say that's an overreaction. They're still just as good of a team. They just faced a really good team that is also a bad matchup. Some teams have a bad matchup against a bad team or a team that's not as good as them. Some teams win games even when they're the bad matchup. So I don't think it was a fluke. I definitely don't think it was a fluke. They could win that game. They can lose that game at any given time. Buccaneers are a good team. It's a tough one for the Packers, but they definitely are still a contender at the same time, so I don't want anybody to take that the wrong way. Just as good of a team. Next, we got from CJXVI, Patriots start selling at the deadline. So we got the deadline coming up here, and a lot of rumors starting to heat up here after the Week 7's action. And I think this actually could be overlooked. I think there's still people are starting to hop off. But I think people are still kind of believing, the Cam could turn it around, Patriots could turn it around. This because we're just so used to the Patriots being so good. But I think you can see from this team, that's even if they can't have good games, they could definitely have them. They can have those good games. They can possibly sneak into the playoffs. But really, are they going to go anywhere? They know they're not going to go anywhere. There's such thing as too much confidence or confidence that's at the point where it's a negative thing. And Bill Belichick and company won't have that. This team's not winning the Super Bowl this year. So the pieces that they have to sell to gain cap space or to gain draft picks because they have more value now versus a year or two from now, they'll test the market. They'll try to do that. So I think they. I guess it's tough to say that they actually sell a bunch of players, but I think they definitely start to make their pitches and they start to try. I think that's kind of overlooked there. So they'll make their attempts. From Max, the Seahawks won't be able to beat any contenders because of their close game with teams who aren't the best. So basically what he's saying here is, yeah, they haven't really beaten anybody that great. They always play close games. They play a solid team in the Cardinals. They go down, so that means they just can't hang with the contenders. And this is actually an interesting one. I'm going to say it's an overreaction because they definitely can beat good teams. They definitely can beat contenders. One loss shouldn't make us say this, but they don't really match up too well against other contenders. Think about the Bucs. If they were to play the Bucs, that would be a bad matchup for them. Teams like that. Maybe they match up a little evenly with the Packers, but that game can go either way. Not having edge rush against contenders is just a no. It's bad. So there are reasons that they might not match up well against other contenders and why they definitely could lose to them, but they definitely could beat them because they're a very good team. They have maybe the best player in football. They have a great coaching staff. So it's definitely be an overreaction, but again, do they match up at the moment where they sit with those great contenders? They really don't. That doesn't mean they're going to lose to them though. So that's why that's an interesting one. But mainly with the Cardinals game, the Cardinals game was kind of an interesting matchup too, because kind of a bad one because the Cardinals can keep up scoring with them, and they're also a pretty good blitzing team, which we saw that. And they can kind of make that extra play to throw them off. So being able to keep up with them as well, I think that is more of the reason why the Seahawks lost rather than they're just not that good. That would be an overreaction to say that. But definitely interesting. From Brennan Scranton. Seahawks need to fire Ken Norton, hire Wade Phillips as a defense coordinator. I've been seeing a lot of people talking about fire Ken Norton. I'm gonna call it an overreaction for sure, though. I mean, this one's definitely an overreaction. It's one thing to fire Ken Norton because it's not really working out, but then to hire somebody else, it's a totally different scheme. Wade Phillips is more of a 3-4 guy, which I think the Seahawks are pretty flexible with the players they have. But it's just never going to happen. They could fire Ken Norton and leave somebody else up to, give somebody else the duties that's currently on staff. Or maybe they don't even hire, don't promote anybody at all. I've seen that before. But really, I think it's just edge rush is so damn important. It's one of the most important things, not only on defense, it is the most important thing on defense, but in football in general. And they just don't have it. It's the league's worst, and that is the reason why the defense isn't playing good. So it's not really Norton's fault. You could argue they can get better perhaps, but it's not going to happen in the middle of the season. So in terms of the coach, I should say, and they need to go out and trade for an edge rusher. It's what they got to do. That's just why they're not performing here. They also need Jamal Adams back. That would definitely help. 604, Gostowski needs to be placed in witness protection. Yeah, be very well made. I'd say that's fair. That's pretty fair. I don't know if Tennessee fans are really going at him. They're definitely pissed. Everybody would be. But are they really going at him right now? I think because what happened in the game, there's some upside. We came back. We started off so slow. We came back. I mean, you had to expect to miss that kick. I think if it was the opposite, they were winning that whole game and they needed a field goal to send it to overtime, then, oh yeah, you need to send them into witness protection. That'd be a big problem. But there's got to be some fans. Got to be a split fan base there on their feelings on Gostowski. I mean, he did have that 6-for-6 game that helped them win, so there's still that at least. Jack Paley, Cam Newton is not a starting level QB in the NFL anymore, and the Patriots should start Stidham instead. This is kind of a two-parter here. First one, I hate to do it, but I'm going to say it's overlooked. It's not said enough that Cam Newton isn't a starting quarterback. I've been a big Cam Newton fan, but now it looks like he's playing hurt again, but that's what we were saying in the past. How many years? It's like he's playing hurt. Let's get him healthy. But now it's at the point where it's permanent. He's using his whole body to throw passes and underthrow passes, keep in mind. Can't really get much going when he could. It looks like it was against weaker defenses early in the year. Maybe he had some wear along the way. He's got to rely on the run first if that's not there. He definitely can still make big plays, but I think you can get better at the quarterback position for the Patriots. So that means, I don't know. And there's not really anybody that's going to want him after this. So I would say that's overlooked a little bit. And the Patriots should start Stidham instead. At the same time, I don't know. I was about to say overreaction, but I'm actually going to call that fair. I don't think they should. That's why I was about to call it overreaction because I think they have a better shot to win games with Cam Newton because of his running ability, and that can open up his passing ability. Stidham, Still can turn the ball over, but he has room to grow, and he can only really grow if he gets in there in playing time. So that's why you could argue it's kind of fair here that maybe he should play. But I think if they're trying to win, I still think Cam Newton, but neither are going to be good. Cam Newton's throwing ability and how he's going about it is why he's probably not a starter anymore. It's sad to see, really. From Jaden Wilson, Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert are top 10 quarterbacks. Definitely gonna say that's overreaction. They're going to be on their way to that. Justin Herbert looks out of his mind right now. Still only has 1 win. Joe Burrow 1 win. Top 10 quarterbacks usually are guys that can get wins despite what's going on in the rest of the teams. They find ways. These quarterbacks have done a phenomenal job, but they haven't really done that yet. But it's okay because they're young. They're not on the best teams, but you can't call them a top 10 quarterback yet. But they're definitely on their way. They are definitely on their way in the future to the top 10 quarterback conversation. For Mason, the Steelers are Super Bowl favorites. This is a good one too because I think that's fair to say right now. That's a tough one because I think most people will be like, no, it's the Chiefs, So maybe it could be overlooked in a way, but I think people look at how balanced they are and they can win on both sides of the ball. And it's definitely fair to say it. I still think there's other teams you can debate. It's definitely fair to say, though. It can't be facts. You could say overlooked here, but it's definitely fair to say. Right now, I think they're playing like the best team in football, but will they, does that mean you're predicting them to be the best football team when it's all said and done? I guess that's debatable, but it's definitely fair to say. Next, from Ben Meja, probably butchered that. I apologize. Raiders should fire defensive coordinator Paul Gunther. I think this is another overreaction. And yes, they're underperforming. I don't think Gunther, I think, is pretty good at making adjustments though. For me, I think look at the Chiefs game. They were. It's I can't say for sure, but you look at the Chiefs game and they were giving up a lot of points and yards. At the end of the day, they did, but they made some kind of adjustments where they were able to throw off Mahomes and they were able to feel like they were predicting plays, correctly. Defense is a guessing game, and I think they were doing a really good job. And I think you got to give some credit to Paul Gunther there. And then it happened really quickly in the Bucs game. All of a sudden, they just started figuring them out in the second half. They started slowing them down. But all of a sudden, the Buccaneers just bursted for 45 points. So I don't know what happened there. Really, they're a pretty balanced defense. They definitely need more at the edge rush position. But yeah, there's just not enough impact play. I don't know if there's really any and I mean takeover players, I should say, because Max Crosby can be an impact player. He's not always an impact player. I mean, guys can be impact players, of course. I mean, a lot of players in the NFL can be, but do they have the takeover players which you need, to really be a good defense? But so I don't know if I put it on Gunther. I don't know. I think he can make adjustments for his team. They may need to be active at the trade deadline for a pass rusher or something there. Next, potato football. Washington is the best team in the NFC East. I'm going to say they can be. They actually can be because it's not hard to be. But I'm going to say overreaction. Maybe I'm basing this too much off of one game. So maybe it's bold of me to say that. But that Giants game still sticking with me. Last week, week 6. The Giants played that game to not lose. They didn't play to win. They played to not lose. They played to punt the ball. They played to not have Daniel Jones have the ball in his hands in the pocket much at all because he will fumble, and that will lose the game. That's how they played, and Washington still lost. They could have tied it, went to overtime, won the game there. They could have won it with a 2-point conversion, but they didn't. So that's sticking with me, and that it sticks with me because it's another NFC East team. Now, there could just be matchup issues, and they could, again, they could beat the Giants at any given time, I think. Maybe they can lose to the Giants, but we've seen them beat the Eagles. So maybe it's kind of like the Cowboys might just be out of it. It might be just a 3-way tie there where they all just split with each other. It could be the case. It really could be the case. So they can be. They have the defensive front to do it. They're starting to get a little more offense, but they did play the Cowboys. I think it's an overreaction because it's definitely too early to say that based on what we just saw, and who they played against. But it's interesting because the NFC East is that rough. Dust Dynasty, Kyler Murray is the front runner for MVP, so that's fresh off the wild performance, the wild game of the Cardinals beating the Seahawks in overtime. Kyler Murray did clutch up at times, but I definitely think this is a is a major overreaction. I think a lot of people kind of said this too. Murray up there for MVP or is an MVP candidate. I actually said going into this year that's a dark horse MVP candidate. He can actually do it. But he's actually a little lower than where my prediction were at. And I expected a little more right now. A lot of season left. He's a guy that continue to get better every step of the way. You expect him to because he's young. Obviously just a rookie last year. There's some growing to do, but he's a little bit under that. I think he relies on, he's a really good runner. I think he relies on kind of quick plays. He's been really inconsistent throwing the ball downfield. The footwork's been a little sloppy. So I'm definitely not calling him anywhere near an MVP candidate, but he's a heck of a ball player. That's for sure. And he's on his way. But there's some things you want to clean up. Some things you kind of, you definitely need to clean up to get to that point for sure. Ray likes football. The Cardinals are legit Super Bowl contenders. Another one with the Cardinals. Another great performance for them, but another one I'm going to have to say overreaction, even though they come off that big-time win. I think people, because they beat the Seahawks, a contender, are they a contender? I think it's an overreaction. I think I picked the Cardinals to beat the Seahawks because of the matchup. Not because I think the Cardinals are the better team. When I say better team against the field, across the NFL, the Seahawks are the better team. Head-to-head, the Cardinals actually might be, they kind of showed that they could be the better team. But they're not ready for Super Bowl contenders. They're too young, too new. Play calling, I'm still really not thrilled with. They still won that game last night, but I'm not thrilled with it. Murray can be inconsistent at times. Super Bowl is about beating the best week after week after week and not making any mistakes because you're playing the best and then getting the Super Bowl. That's a whole nother level and actually winning that. I guess Super Bowl contenders could be just getting the Super Bowl, but it's just going to be so hard to do. No Chandler Jones as well. Defense is stepping up. They can still give up yards and points, though. They're a playoff contender. They are a playoff contender. They're not a Super Bowl contender right now. Bright future, though. Next, we got boneless bread. Bucks are the best team in the NFC, and I don't know what to call this. I can go multiple different ways. I'm gonna go multiple different ways here. I don't know if I was gonna say overlooked, but I think people are starting to realize it now. It might be overlooked because their record. They have 2 losses, the Saints and the Bears, so it might be overlooked in a way. I almost want to call it a fact. I think they're better than where we're expected to be at this point, and I expect them to be really good. They're the most balanced in the NFC by far, and that's why they matched up well against the Packers, because the Packers are a very good contending team and could be the best team in the NFC. So that, I guess that's kind of the debate, because we know head-to-head the Bucs might be better than the Packers. You can't base it off one game, but just matchup-wise, you kind of get the feeling. But are the Packers very well could be better against the NFC field, so they could be the better team in the NFC. And there's other teams you definitely can debate. So I'm not trying. Seahawks, Bears are playing good. There's definitely many other teams you can debate. So I'm not just trying to single out a couple teams here and leave teams off. But I'm going to call it fair because I don't know if people are really, it's overlooked by people. I think people are starting to realize, maybe some people that just record watch maybe, or that just don't really like, I know there's a lot of people that just don't really like Tom Brady, I feel like, for some reason. It's a really good team. They're so well balanced. There's no holes in the team. They're the team to beat right now in the NFC. I think that would be a fact. They're the team to beat at this given moment. But there's some other good teams, like I said. Last one, Andre Johnson, most underrated. Many players on the text. That sound like that was the statement. Andre Johnson, most underrated. I don't know. Many players on the Texans will request/demand a trade to get off the team. Trade deadline coming up. Another loss. It looks like it's J.J. Watt. That's his home, but it looks like he's just pretty ticked off. I think this is fair to think. I think it's pretty fair to think. It's kind of a disaster. You have change with Bill O'Brien gone, but there's still some mess ups. It's just still such a bad situation. It's such a mess. And there was more expectations. There was more expectations, a lot more. So, I don't know. I think their players could really. I think multiple players could. They probably already have. So I think it's fair to think that. We got the trade deadline coming up, so a lot of these discussions will come up for sure. And we're gonna have you covered. We have 3 different types of trade deadline videos on the channel. So just go on the channel, check them out, check out the videos. All kinds of predictions, full coverage all week long, every week in the offseason, full free agency and draft coverage. So hit that subscribe button, turn notifications on. Be much much appreciated. If you could smash the like button, we enjoy that very much as well. Yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments. That's going to do it for this one, though. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Goodbye.